Good morning. There's a story about this Jew who brought his talit to the dry cleaners. When he came to pick it up, he got a bill for $100. He said to the dry cleaners, $100 to clean the talit? He said, no, it was $10 to clean the talit and $90 to take out all the knots. This week's Torah portion begins with the story of the spies who went to the land of Israel and came back with a devastating, demoralizing, pessimistic view of the land of Israel, persuading the Jews not to enter into the land of Israel because the people were too mighty and the country was too fortified and strong and it cannot be penetrated and conquered. At the end of the Torah portion, we have the commandment of tzitzit, the fringes on the corner of the talit. So the two bookends of the Torah portion is the story of the spies and the story of the commandment of tzitzit. And there's a connection, our rabbis say, between the two stories. You see, when the spies went, the verb is they went to see the land, to tour the land, to scout the land, to view it. And as a result, they came back fearful, intimidated, and lost faith and became despondent and fell into despair. But at the end of the parsha, the Torah gives us the remedy to the mistake and the sin of the spies. And the Torah says, look at the fringes of the tzitzit on the corner of your garment, the four-corner garment, and see them and remember all the commandments of God. What the Torah is telling us is a very fundamental lesson. The difference between seeing and remembering is that seeing is an external act. Remembering is an internal act. If we just look at what we see with our eyes and we act based on the external facts and influences, we will not be true to our inner self of our soul. But rather, when we see, we have to connect what we see to what we remember, which is introspection and internal remembrance, to recall our story, our values, our history, and act not just merely on what you see, but on what you remember. And the spies only acted on what they saw. Hence, they made a terrible mistake and became intimidated and fearful and lost faith in God and the promise to enter the land of Israel. But the mitzvah, don't just act on the external influences, look within yourself and remember your story. Had the spies looked inside themselves and remembered the 10 plagues in Egypt, the miracles, the splitting of the sea, the revelation at Mount Sinai, they would have had the ability to overcome the influence of the external picture that they saw before their eyes. How true this is today in a day and age where there's so many external influences constantly coming at us through media, marketing, and advertising, messages that are custom tailored by algorithms to fit our biases and our perceptions and our habits. How careful we have to be to not act on externalities, but to always recall from within who we are, what our values are, the great miracles God already performed for us in our lives, to have courage, faith, and trust in God and in the future. Something happened remarkable on May 7th in a nursing home in Toronto. There's a resident there by the name of Gerda Cole, and she turned 98 on May 7th, which was also her birthday, but also Mother's Day in Canada. Now, Gerda Cole was 15 years old when she was sent on the kinder transport to Great Britain. She was raised in Vienna, and her parents, tragically, after Kristallnacht, were rounded up and sent to the gas chambers. But she was sent off on the kinder transport and came to Great Britain. She met a man, got pregnant, married and pregnant at the age of 18. But then she got divorced and she couldn't raise the child. She was destitute and had no education, and she was forced to give the child up for adoption. She went on to remarry and start a family, and eventually moved to Canada, to Toronto in 1965. The only thing she knew about her daughter that was born before she gave it up for adoption was that she was given the ability to name the child, which she named the child Sonia, but never saw the child again because she was not allowed to have any contact with the family. Well, this Sonia went on to have children and grandchildren, and one of her grandchildren started to do research to find out who his great-grandmother was. And this grandson, Stephen, through the internet and then through DNA, was able to track down a grandchild of Gerda Cole and discovered that his grandmother's mother, Sonia's mother, is alive in Toronto. And so 80 years after this girl, Sonia, was given up for adoption, Sonia traveled with her grandson, Stephen, to Toronto and was reunited with her mother on her 98th birthday. And Gerda and Sonia fell into each other's arms and wept and melted into each other's arms, reunited after 80 years. And Gerda said, when I was 15, I was torn away from my parents. They were sent to the gas chambers and I was sent to Great Britain. Then I had a child and I was torn away from my child as I couldn't raise my child and gave my child up for adoption. And for 80 years, I lived without parents and without my child. But finally, God granted me the blessing to be reunited with my child, Sonia, my daughter, her children and grandchildren. And I want to use the rest of my life to live with my new family, to be with them. This is the story of memory, that despite the challenges we go through, we always recall who we are, where we come from, our internal story. We always have to be true to our inner self and not be influenced by our external surroundings. Have a wonderful day.